We are.
Okay,
Yes.
very good. Well, tonight's presentation is called Microwave, Microbiology, and Nano Nonsense. And it actually, as usual, I have a link for the whole program. I'll give this at the end also, but if you'd like to view this program after and watch all the videos or share it with your friends, tiny.cc/r-rp-fool is the link for the slideshow. Now, a disclaimer before we get started. Tonight's program, although primarily being presented by one person, is actually a joint effort of many. So I'm not going to take the rap on all the bad slides here tonight. Some slides involving biological processes may be a little intense for some attendees, sort of rated PG. So please look away if necessary. I'll give you a warning on one particular slide. So if you're a little queasy about medical things and biology, I'll warn you before we get to that slide. Please be aware of today's date as you watch this presentation. Let's try and get this full screen here if we can. There we go. Okay. So our first item that we want to talk about tonight is something called a visionary innovation, and wonder if anyone out there has it. It's a discrete mask voice-activated microphone. It has multiple frequency radio, HF, VHF, UHF, optional Bluetooth earpiece or earbuds. There's an ultra-thin radio that looks like a high-end cell phone to impress all your friends. It has clear video visor with the green screen technology built in. Software to link you with your computer, live streaming, or virtual platforms. Its bio-friendly applications link the radio with your brain waves for the ultimate in connectivity. It's the most remarkable radio and interface partnering system ever built. Our second item we want to talk about is something that goes back a couple of years in time. During the 17th century, all over the world, mankind was formulating recipes to create organic life from inorganic matter. E.g., take sweaty rags, wrap them around wheat, and set them in an open jar. In 21 days, you'll create mice. Well, the whole idea of spontaneous generation was thought to have been thoroughly debunked over the years. But after years of study, it's obvious to all observers that spontaneous generation does exist in amateur radio shacks around the world. Following is a step-by-step description proving the existence of spontaneous generation. Step number 1. Use a standard empty container, cardboard box, plastic tote, or other container. Containers with small drawers seem to be especially potent for spontaneous generation. Place them in a dark corner of your radio shack, as pictured on the left below, or in the trunk of your car, as pictured on the right. Within a few years, or in some cases just a matter of days, examine the contents for signs of spontaneous generation, and I'm sure you will be able to prove that amateur radio does involve spontaneous generation. If you think amateur radio is bad, though, beware of the runaway spontaneous generation of obsolete computer parts, which can put amateur radio junk boxes to shame. Our next topic we want to talk about is using human parasites for communication tools. And in this step, we're going to look at three things. We're going to look at a Babel fish in the ear, some gut microbiology, and we're going to look at a parasite called Dracunculus, which I'll warn you before we get to that slide. The Babel fish is a unimer. You're going to want to be able to communicate with radio waves, so we're going to use gut bacteria, and we have a little later section discussing this in more detail, but here you can see an example of a gut bacteria communicating with an immune cell in the system. Now the next slide, if you're a little bit squeamish as far as medical things go, you may want to look away for the next slide, but otherwise you need to have an antenna for any good communication system, and having a built-in antenna, such as Dracunculus, also known as the guinea worm, which can extend out of your leg or out of your foot, can be a self-contained antenna suitable for amateur radio use. Okay, you can look back at the screen if you looked away for the biological warning. So that's human parasitology for a compact, completely mobile human communication system. So let's talk a little bit further about that whole idea of using RF and bacteria. The first thing we want to talk about is using RF to detect bacteria in food samples. And using a 30 to 60 gigahertz RF with the addition of bacteriophages, we could detect pathogenic bacteria. And here's the little antenna we use. It's, as I said before, 30 to gigahertz signal. And what we do is we monitor for changes in SWR. And those changes will occur whenever bacteria is sensed in the material we want to test. So there's a link for more details on it available, as there are other slides in this presentation. So again, I'll give the link at the end so you can get the slide presentation and view all the additional material. We talked about being able to use the gut bacteria for communication with RF. Bacteria and viruses generate and communicate with RF. Physicists at Northeastern University in Boston in 2011 agreed with Dr. Luc Montagneur's findings in his 2009 publication that shook the bedrock of science. And there's an article in MIT Technology Review in 2011. But many of you may not know about this, so we wanted to bring it up for you to find out. Dr. Montagnier won the 2008 Nobel Prize for Medicine for discovering HIV and publishing a research paper that concluded simple organisms can communicate using RF. E. coli can communicate within a community using an AM/FM-like radio transmissions, and radio signals are broadcast at 1/2, 1, and 1.5 kilohertz on the radio frequency band. And the real question is, will the FCC regulate the microwave frequencies and require licensing for full power operation on these frequencies? Another way that bacteria can communicate is with circular DNA loop technology. And it is well known that bacteria and other types of cells use electromagnetic waves at higher frequencies to communicate and to send and store energy. When cellular DNA takes the form of a circular loop, free electrons as quantum objects take on different energy levels, moving around the loop and produce radio waves. We have a diagram here showing examples of this. Examples of circular DNA are plasmids, cccDNA of some viruses, circular bacterial chromosomes, mitochondrial DNA, mtDNA, chloroplast plastids DNA, and ectochromosomal circular DNA. Applications include controlling cellular organisms such as human cells, bacteria, or some viruses by using radio waves via digital silicon-based interface for hacking physiology. Our next category is the use of dermatological RF treatments. And I have another little video to play here. But before we start the video, just want to tell you what frequencies are used. These, depending on which country you're in, different regulations require different uses of different frequencies. But the frequencies range from 0.6 to 8 megahertz, although one country has a version that uses the 27.12 megahertz frequency. So I'm wondering if that's for unlicensed CB use of the technique. Power used ranges from 40 to 240 watts, and treatments average $300 to $1,500 per treatment. So let's watch a little video. This one is not very biologically intense.
Radiofrequency skin tightening is a non-invasive way to diminish wrinkles and fine lines, even out skin texture, and reduce the appearance of cellulite. It can be great for firming up necklines or contouring jawlines and yield similar results as a brow or facelift. But unlike a facelift, radiofrequency skin tightening causes no damage to the outer layers of the skin. That's because it works from the bottom up. A radio wand beams frequencies into the dermis and subcutaneous layers of the skin, which contain all the elastin, collagen, and connective fibers. These radio waves produce a little pocket of heat, which causes layers of collagen and deeper layers of the skin to contract. This contraction pulls the surface layers of the skin taut, minimizing the prominence of pores and fine lines. During treatment, a cooling gel helps protect your upper layers of skin and lets the device slide as gracefully as a penguin escaping a bad first date. All you'll feel is a slight warming and vibrating sensation.
So, by the way, that temperature, that slight warming, can reach up to 40 degrees centigrade below the skin surface in the collagen layers. And scientific RF treatments, easy and painless. See results with just 5 to 8 monthly sessions. Maintain your results for 1 year to 6 months. And unlike ultrasonic treatments, there are no required pain therapy for it. It's a simple aftercare instructions. Our next area that we want to look at concerning RF is RF enhancement of antibiotic efficiency. Antibiotic resistance of bacteria is one of the biggest threats to public health, but the application of RF electromagnetic current of approximately 10 megahertz on the polar parts of bacterial molecules is effective due to bioelectrical effect. Microamp electrical currents cause bacterial membrane damage in short time, enhancing the effectiveness of antibiotic therapy. Even electrical fields without a current at microamp or milliamps are effective. Applications include food industry, biotechnology, therapeutic practices, biosphere distribution of bacteria, and we have, again, a reference for you to find more information. RF can also be used to enhance pain. A simple outpatient ablation procedure using local anesthetic and mild sedation can be used in multiple portions of the body to reduce pain. Now, for all those of you that are looking for components or things you might need, this is a microtransformation 3D printer. It's a must for portable radio operators. It starts with a simple click of a wire cutter. You just snip this little wire here and it activates the machine. You add your favorite reusable probiotic disc. It transfers most materials into whatever you need. It's a 3D printer for all your electronic needs. No need for temperature control. Design needed parts in a flash. Fully integrated with visionary innovation products. Visit our subsidiary's website for probiotic disc options. And our organization's motto is, we capture common germs on disk to transform the ordinary into extraordinary expressions. And this is the MakerBot Replicator 2 model, the most advanced. So CRISPR has been in the news quite a bit, and if you're not familiar with CRISPR, I have a short introduction video here. But CRISPR is a way that you can transcribe DNA to change it into a new version of DNA.
All right, real quick.
We need volume up just a hair.
Yeah,
Editing is when targeted changes are made, like insertions and deletions, right in an organism's genome. Over the past decade, the CRISPR-Cas9 system has become a very popular method.
Barely hear it.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That's as loud as it'll go.
Precise and relatively easy to use. The way it works is that researchers create a piece of RNA with a guide sequence, which is complementary.
Let me mute it and I'll just tell you what it's saying. So you create a guide sequence of genetic material that matches the section you want to attack. You add the Cas9 protein, and then it binds upon the DNA at the specified location. It then does a double incision in the DNA right there. And after that incision takes place, you can insert a chunk of your own designed DNA. So this is the way that the mRNA virus was designed, mRNA for the vaccine was designed, and this is the way we can modify any type of genetic material. So that's how CRISPR works. You may not realize, though, that CRISPR can be used to create circuits. Cells, like computer, process information by transcribing the genetic information in DNA into a chemically similar sequence called RNA. These cells can perform like logical gates and circuit switches. The decision to transcribe a gene can be thought of as turning a circuit on. The decision not to transcribe can be thought of as turning a circuit off. So here you can see a diagram of a CRISPR-designed NOR gate using genetic material to design a typical NOR gate used in electronics operation. Our next area involves space. The use of nanosatellites built from viral cells. There's a misspelling up there. Nanosatellites are created by genetically engineering virus cells by using CRISPR. Copies can then be built by replication in bacterial cells. Billions of viral nanosatellites could be built at very little cost. So we take our bacteriophage that we've designed with our CRISPR, we put it on a suitable bacterial host, it inserts its DNA into that host, and then the host produces a number of the bacteriophages which are completed, and then the cell lyses and are released into space. So they can be built at extremely low cost. Here's some examples of some bacteriophages with different types of antenna arrangements for satellite communication. The helical model has a lot of promise. And then with the complex bacteriophage, we have multiple arrays of antennas so we can get gain in our signal. Some of the advantages of viral nanosatellites over traditional satellite technology is they're extremely easy to build, they're easy to duplicate, and they provide redundance by having multiple copies of the same satellite. So one launch vehicle can carry billions of potential satellites, and they can be turned on when needed. So we don't have to worry about a satellite getting into space and then not operating properly. They have extremely low weight, which minimizes launching cost, and their small size avoids space debris hazards and space crowding. We have one last feature about CRISPR we want to talk about. It's using CRISPR kits at home. You can also use CRISPR kits for pet engineering. You can take your CRISPR kit and using Cat9, you can design your own custom-built pet. Now, someone mentioned that for older versions, there was an older version available that uses Cat5 cables for operation, but the new version does not require Cat5 cables. Oh, I take that back. We have one last CRISPR news flash for you here. CRISPR kits are available for the home market, and you can start now and build a new CRISPR kit for your summer fun. It's New Citizens DNA Transcription Kit, only $42.95 per unit. Any citizen 18 or older is eligible for a station's license to use the CRISPR at home kit. No theory to study, no test to take, no operator's license necessary. Hundreds of uses in business and pleasure. And you notice you can take it in your car with you, but only if you have a 1960s vintage car with a bench seat and a giant steering wheel. But it's nice around the house for the housewife to use in her modern lighting fixture area. So we're done with CRISPR now, so let's talk a little bit about another area of development that you may not be aware of. And this involves the science behind the saltwater antenna. SSC Pacific engineer Daniel Tam has done the groundwork for an exciting new antenna that should be of interest to amateurs who don't have the real estate for large antennas and for those who live in restricted covenant neighborhoods. Even apartment dwellers will love this new antenna. Yes, you could even DIY it yourself. We're going to watch the video, and I won't get a chance to show the full 5 minutes of the video. We'll just watch the first 3 minutes, but you can watch the rest of it at your leisure. Again, we'll give you the link to this at the end of the presentation. It's originally designed for seagoing vessels. Enterprising hams have adapted design for use at home, at suburbs, and in the city. So here's our video.
Daniel Tam, an engineer at SSC Pacific in San Diego, California, is developing a reconfigurable, multi-function antenna that uses seawater to receive and transmit communication signals. The antenna was originally intended for use in situations where real estate for placement of antennas is limited, especially on seacraft.
U.S. Navy ships has approximately 80 antennas. To perform antenna integration is a major challenge because the antennas easily interfere with each other. There is not enough topside real estate to separate them. The seawater antenna was developed to address this problem.
While this was its original intent, with some modifications, the seawater antenna could potentially be used as an emergency broadcast antenna on both sea and land. It could also be helpful in areas where communications are limited due to geography. Other possible applications exist thanks to the seawater antenna's simple and reconfigurable design.
This is a magnetic core material, and what it does is that if you have an antenna going through the magnetic core, when the current flow, it generates the magnetic field. This current probe was designed from 2 megahertz to 400 megahertz. So it potentially can be used for HF, VHF, and UHF range.
A signal is not received until the seawater antenna pump is turned on. The pump shoots a stream of seawater through the current probe, resulting in clear reception.
The frequency range is based on the height of the seawater stream. So for HF, frequency is typical around, we need to use 70 to 80 feet, and VHF is approximately maybe 6 feet of seawater stream, and UHF is approximately 2 feet of water stream.
The seawater antenna can also transmit signals. In this example, signals are being transmitted and received through a repeater tower 30 miles away.
N6TYF, KE6FRY.
KE6FRY, N6TYF. Hi, Dan.
Hello, Mike.
I am testing my seawater antenna. How is my signal report?
I've got maximum signal, 5x5, very loud and clear, and no noise on the background.
Okay, thank you for your help. KE6FRY out. The advantage of the seawater antenna is that we no longer have the topside real estate restrictions. We can place the antenna anywhere along the deck of the ships.
Another advantage of the seawater antenna is its reconfigurable and multifunction design.
Potentially is you can have multiple current probes stacked on each other, and also sprayed with multiple substreams to simultaneously perform HF, VHF, and UHF operations.
Obvious markets that would benefit from the seawater antenna include commercial fishing boats, recreational and pleasure craft, cruise ships, and man-made ocean platforms such as oil rigs. But the seawater antenna is not limited for use on the water. By adding salt to fresh water, the antenna could be used for land applications. In this example, a stream of salt water is pumped up into an enclosed plastic tube. On land, the seawater antenna could potentially replace existing antennas. Tube enclosures could be used for rooftop and mountaintop antennas. Existing fountains of all shapes and sizes could be used as antennas by adding salt and current probes. During natural disasters, existing communications are often disrupted for days. Through the use of alternative power methods, such as a foot pump or solar cells, and a smaller current probe, no bigger than $50, portable seawater antennas could be used. These would also be useful as emergency broadcast antennas for boaters. This patent-pending technology is undergoing further development for future applications. The seawater antenna's simple and reconfigurable design presents a viable option in the future of communications.
Well, we had time for the whole thing because I noticed that I've been speaking very quickly, so let's go on to our next slide here.
Daniel.
So this slide, I am not going to play the full video, but this is an example of an amateur radio use on HF using a saltwater tube, and I'll just play little snippets of this for you, and you can again watch the whole thing.
Hey y'all, this is Stuart, KB1HQS, and I'm going to operate field day with a saltwater 20-meter vertical antenna.
So he's taping his tube to his support.
Well, how about that, 1-to-1? I don't know if it's actually CQ field day, CQ field day, CQ field day. Kilo Bravo 1 Hotel Quebec Sierra. Okay, here's the setup. Got my standard KX3 with the broken microphone, which is always fun. Got the
Well, I'm going to let you have to watch the rest of that to find out what happens. So our next slide with saltwater antenna, with the proper attachment at the faucet of a seawater antenna pump that injects salt at the proper rates and with the proper turbulence factors, this stealth saltwater lawn sprinkler for HOAs and small lots saved the day. It was not until his neighbors noticed the large brown patches in his yard did the innovative ham decide to move to the seaside. But never worry, with proper assistance and aims, even an apartment dweller can use this saltwater antenna configuration. And here we have a patented device called the Sea Aerial by Mitsubishi Electric. Notice when we turn it on, the antenna starts working and the signal is transmitted to the little receiver. And when it's turned off, the signal goes away. So this little fountain of water is being used for the television signal. Next week's proposed RATPAC topic is the Sea Aerial saltwater antenna for home and travel. And please join us for saltwater antennas on the air, a proposed new category for the well-known parks on the air. The Lifesaver QSL card is causing a bit of confusion at the post office, but all new adventures have their ups and downs, turbulent starts, and some of them make waves. So look for Swayota on the air. We have one last water antenna we're going to talk about, and this just has a musical background, which I'm going to mute because it's just a very loud playing song. But this is using a Huron's fountain, which is a sort of perpetual motion type of system using multiple layers of water. So by using two plastic containers and a series of straws, once we fill the top reservoir, it'll start a fountain going. So this is a great take-home perpetual motion saltwater antenna. Just add salt. And yes, we do hope you will try this experiment at home, with, especially if you have children that you can incorporate into helping you with the Huron perpetual fountain version antenna. And I think we even have one last shot here of a dual band operation. Here we go. By using smaller containers, you can have both a 2-meter and 440 version of the Huron perpetual fountain version antenna. Simply fill the top reservoir with water. Remember to add salt. And now you're ready for full duplex dual band operation. So much for our saltwater antennas. Scientists have discovered 25,000 new mountains on our planet, and most of you probably don't even realize that. Yes, you've read it correctly. New, more than powerful radar satellites have detected at least 25,000 underwater mountains, so that's why you may not have noticed them, that no one ever knew existed. So we now are excited to introduce the new USSOTA, Undersea Summits on the Air. Some of the guidelines for this new operating event are: make sure you use only lower sideband, reverse CW, or F2 for digital contacts. Make sure you fuse only your negative battery terminals. DSP, deep sea processing of audio, is highly recommended. Rules also limit your way that you can get to the summit. Use of motorized vehicles to get to the final summit destination is prohibited. Suggested ways to get to it are dolphins, orcas, or other marine mammals. Or if you'd rather take a low-tech, non-biological means of getting to your summit, simply take a boat to a point above your summit and use either cement shoes or a Chicago overcoat. Both of those will get you to the right height very quickly. If by chance you overshoot your peak, there's always USTOTA, undersea trenches on the air. Moving on to our next topic for today. This is a very important topic, but again, this is rated PG because we're now talking about safe connector sex. To prevent bacterial or viral infections, unused connectors should be protected at all times with a sheath of protective material, whether it be metal or plastic or vinyl as in these cases. If unprotected containers are at a potential threat for a number of insidious infectious diseases, and we have some examples of both coax connectors, USB connectors, and multiple connectors here on this one cable TV distribution box. When connectors are to be mated, you must remove the protective covering. So again, use a barrier cream which can prevent or minimize infections. Make sure you apply liberally and do not reuse the cream when you make your next connection. We have another little video for your pleasure here. For Field Day, we want to talk about some innovative ways you can get your antennas up in the trees, and no better way than using a baking soda and vinegar to launch your Field Day antennas to great heights.
Here at Make, we've featured a lot of different air cannons. We've made t-shirt cannons, burrito blasters, cannons powered by tasers.
I don't see the video.
And even
Oh, you're not seeing the video?
Oh, I see it fine.
I see it fine.
Well, this week, we're making a cannon that's powered by baking soda and vinegar. When baking soda and vinegar are mixed, they create a lot of carbon dioxide. In a closed container, this gas can build up a lot of pressure, enough to send a potato flying several hundred feet through the air. Keep in mind that an air cannon can be very dangerous. They can do a lot of damage to both people and property. So proceed at your own risk. This cannon is constructed from several pieces of PVC pipe and a couple of fittings. The reaction chamber is made from 2 feet of 4-inch diameter pipe. On each side, there's a 4-inch to 2-inch reducer fitting. Then there's a small piece of 2-inch diameter pipe. This connects the reducer fitting to a 2-inch ball valve. Lastly, a long piece of 2-inch diameter pipe is added to one end to act as a barrel. Start by dry fitting all the parts together. If you're happy with the shape and size of everything, then you can glue them in place. PVC pipe is attached in a process called solvent welding. Start by applying a layer of purple primer to all the connecting surfaces. Then apply a layer of PVC cement. Fit the pieces together and twist them a quarter turn. Allow everything to sit overnight to fully cure. Next, we need to add a pressure gauge. Drill a hole in the side of the reaction chamber that's just smaller than the fitting of the gauge. Wrap the threads of the gauge tightly in plumber's tape. Then use a wrench to screw the gauge onto the side of the reaction chamber. Now you're ready to try it out. Start by opening up both valves. Then load a potato into the barrel. When you're done, close the front valve. Pour 4 cups of vinegar into the reaction chamber through the back valve. Then take a 1/4 cup of baking soda and put it on the center of a napkin. Lift up the sides of the napkin and twist it so that it makes a small baking soda packet. Insert the packet into the reaction chamber, then quickly close the back valve. Gently rock the chamber back and forth to help mix the reactants. After a few seconds, you should build up about 20 psi of pressure in the chamber. Then, all you have to do is hold the cannon firmly, quickly open the front valve, and send your potato flying through the air. After each shot, you need to clean out the barrel and the reaction chamber. Then, you're ready to reload the cannon and try again. Thanks for watching. Be safe and
always remember to attach your string to your potato so that you can pull your antenna up when you're done.
Here at Make, we featured a...
Now, of course, for Field Day, there's special bonuses for using non-commercial power sources. And no better way than using a composting toilet to power your field day station.
Home Biogas has debuted its latest invention, the Home Biogas Toilet. The Home Biogas Toilet is an easy-to-use and environmentally conscious waste management solution for the modern home. Now you could turn what you're used to flushing down the drain into a renewable source of free cooking gas. The toilet connects directly to Home Biogas appliance, where tiny bacteria inside the digester work to break down your waste. In return, you'll get methane that you could use for cooking. This is an off-grid solution, not requiring pressurized water.
You have to provide your own methane boiler to produce your final electrical product for field day. And remember to sign your signal as either T1 or T2, depending on which type of waste you're using in your toilet.
Home Biogas has debuted.
So let's move on to another area that's been in the news a lot lately, and that's artificial intelligence. Our AI, or artificial intelligence, is being used in a wide variety of products. A group of researchers designed a project using AI on the amateur radio bands. The following slides provide their experiment and findings. Arnie, the AI robot, contained features and abilities that would be the envy of most hams. The ability to flawlessly send and receive CW, RTTY, FT8, and most digital modes at top speed with no computer interface necessary. DSP capability to pull out the weakest single sideband signals even next to a kilowatt interferer. Built-in wireless reverse beacon network and DX cluster interfacing, and many top secret skills and features that we cannot reveal in these slides. Arnie was set up to operate a state-of-the-art station with the best rigs and antennas. After a few weeks of testing, the results were phenomenal. DXCC at the 330 level on all modes. Worked all states, 11 bands on all modes. First place in many top contests. Worked all zones, 160 meters with only 1 watt of output power. The problem started a few weeks later. Arnie was suddenly uninterested in amateur radio and had contacted the FCC to have his license canceled. He said he was taking up boating as a hobby. We were very disappointed as researchers. We thought there was a problem with Arnie's AI, but we were reassured that that was not the problem. We asked him a simple question. What type of boat was he buying? And he replied, buying a boat? Only fools do that. A boat is a hole in the water that surrounded by wood into which you pour your money. I found a friend with a boat. I don't need to buy a boat. So we were reassured that Arnie's thinking was correct. We still wondered, though, what had happened. An investigation later found the radio tuned to where Arnie had last been when he gave up. And we had to blank out the final characters of the frequency here to protect those innocent 75-meter users. Moving on to nanotechnology, the nanocellular phone from Nokia, called the Morph, has a variety of features that use nanotechnologies. And of course, we have a video. So smell-o-vision is also one of the features. It charges solarly. So when you drip honey on it, it is self-cleaning. Special nano particles resist dirt and other contaminants. And one of the most fabulous features, it is stretchable, bendable, reformable. Super strong, unbreakable. It is transparent so you can actually look through it. The Nokia Morph. Let's move on to a subject that's dear to all amateurs, especially when the wind's blowing outside, and that's the problem for antennas. Are your antennas starting to sag? Is it twisting out of shape? No, this isn't a commercial for one of those things, so don't worry, we're not going with that kind of humor today. Maybe you need more antennas. Maybe you need to have your antennas get longer. Again, it isn't a commercial for that, what you're thinking it is. It is instead a protective bauxite 19 vaccine, which will keep your antennas safe, and you can allow your antennas to grow healthy and stay in strong shape by using Miracle-Gro antenna food. And you thought we were going to say to take a certain colored pill, but we're not going to go that way. We have one of the latest in logical elements, the maybe gate, and we have one person who's very interested in the maybe gate. Maybe he'd like to speak here. Would you like to speak, Dennis?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, the maybe gate from Outel Semiconductors. This was their press release that they just put out. It's a new class of logic devices that was introduced by them, the maybe gate. And from the manufacturer, you can use the maybe gate logic function when the not or why not function just doesn't cut it. For those times when you need to make a decision, but it's necessary to not make a decision, but not necessarily. And of course, the photo illustrates some workers unloading their prototype at the factory. So this is part number of the new maybe gate. It's OT for Outel, a 1 N and a 2 O or AB positive. So the N is the number of inputs, 1 to 6 inputs, and the dash O suffix has that 1 to 6 inputs, but it has a maybe this and a maybe that output. The AB positive suffix adds an inverter, so you get a maybe not as well. So it has a wide operating temperature and voltage range, and it's available in many packaging styles. Here you see the logic symbol for the maybe gate, and of course a truth table to go along with it, and shows you how the different options are configured for the number of inputs. Okay, electrical specifications. So VCC, it'll operate on 3.3 volts to 208 volts DC or AC three-phase. It requires VDD supply of minus 378.33 volts DC plus or minus 0.01 volts. Power consumption is 3.14156 Newton meters per second minimum. That's minimum configuration. And there has a logic fan out of you go right and I'll go left. The heat load, yes, it generates heat and lots of it. So here are your packaging options. It comes in a 40-pin dip, dual inline package, gold flip chip. It comes in a SOP8, a TSOP8, a DSOP8, QFN, and a host of others. Packaging materials as well. Ceramic, plastic, silly putty, epoxy. The lead material can be lead, silver, antimony, gold, gold plate, and of course, gold pressed platinum. And it's available for an extra charge with chrome plating. oh yes, the geopolitical and spiritual modes in its specifications is Zen is B1 with all inputs, and of course the socialist degree is all your inputs belong to me. And these are coming soon to your favorite electronic component distributors, such as Lafayette Electronics, Olson Electronics, and Fry's Electronics, and many, many others.
Well, thank you, Dennis.
You got it.
And I think, do I have an assistant on this? Speak up if you're going to be assisting me on this next slide. Anyone from the team? Ralph, are you going to assist me on this?
I can do that.
Okay, you're the operator, Ralph.
I am. Oh, okay.
I'll be
Hi,
the net control.
This is Alpha Papa Romeo 1 Fox Oscar Lima here. I've got two critical questions for you.
Go ahead, APR1FOL.
First, does the FCC follow unaccompanied rap-style conversation on phone? And secondly, are jazz and rapper rhythms allowed when keying CW? My grandkids are here with me right now. They all said they would study to get their tech licenses if it's okay. Back to you, Net Control, APR1FOL.
What? Thank you, Ralph. And our final item is a little bit historical note of a contest of significance. It's just finished running. It is the annual Poisson d'Avril contest, and the time frame for it is 0001 Zulu to 1954 Zulu on April 1st. So we've already finished the contest. The object of the contest is to promote the use of humor in amateur radio contesting by amateurs worldwide before, during, and after the contest period. Actual on-the-air activity is encouraged but optional. All amateurs with a sense of humor are eligible. It can be used as a way to vent your frustrations in writing after the CQWPX single sideband contest last weekend, held in the days preceding the POD. By the way, the inventor of the contest is Doug Grant, K1DG, and I had a email conversation with him. And by the way, the reason it ends at 1954 is Doug's birthday is actually April 1st, 1954. So that's why the contest ends at 1954 Zulu. When I talked to Doug, he said the contest, he gave me more details on the contest, but before we get to that, let's talk about the French tradition of April Fish. And April Fish, this condition, there was the idea of playing jokes on people on April 1st. Many of the jokes involve fish and pictures of fish, but sometimes live fish. There are many origin stories, and I have no idea which of them is closest to the truth. The important thing is April Fool's Day seems to have originated in France. And here we have an example, one of the common April Fool's jokes in France of sticking a picture of a fish on someone's back, sort of like a kick me. The name comes from the French tradition of April Fool's jokes, many revolving around the concept of a fish, and I have some links here for much more information on this than you'd ever want to find out. For a full description of the history of the contest and examples of the results, read the email that Doug himself sent me at this link. And I'm just going to click on this and show you some of the information that Doug's email contained. So he was surprised to hear from me. He said I was the first person that had ever asked him about the history of the PFD. And he said maybe he might write it up and submit it for the contest journal next year. So his birthday, as he said, was April 1st. And the plan started in 1993 or so when he noticed that there were a lot of small radio contests sponsored by various national societies, many with exotic sounding names. So he began to win some contests at that time, but wanted to win more. So he got the idea that if he started a contest held on his birthday, since it was his contest, he always deserved to win it every year. And thus was born the P of A. To give it some cover, he invented a French-sounding organization to be the sponsor, the Legion d'Omelettes, and omelets with cheese, and omelets and a variety of other things. So he goes on with the nonsense, and he talks more in his letter about the people that got involved with it and some of the things that have happened over the years. It's been going on for a number of years now. ZS6EZ sent him an old 8-inch floppy disk folded so it would fit in the envelope and then stapled to keep it flat. he wrote in on his log in silver Sharpie on the black disc. And he talks about a variety of people who've been involved. So you got to read the whole thing to get the information. But he talks about a number of people who've been involved. And I didn't realize this, but K1AR, very, very stalwart contester, happens to be Doug's brother-in-law, I guess. So they have a connection that way. So he sent me information. He sent me the actual rules, which I've put in this document. Some of the modes are very interesting, and some of the multi-operator. So there's categories, including single operator, multi-operator, and multi-operator has categories such as single op. The contest is too long because I have a job and family, unlike those guys in major category 1. So I only operated for an hour. Or multi-op, most of the guys are from my local club and just wanted to drink beer all weekend since we couldn't afford a de-expedition, and a variety of other categories. And note, for QRPers like myself, there are no QRP categories, so QRPers should pay special attention to the following section. We're all tired of having to dig out your pathetic weak signals out of the noise. Give us a break. Geez, whatever possessed you to start this insanity anyway? Enough is enough. Turn up the power, get an amplifier, and put on a decent antenna so we can hear you for a change. You'll be amazed at how much more fun contesting is when people can hear you. Life's too short for QRP. Get a life. And then he goes on through the rest of the information. He talks about some results over the year, and I'm just going to end with that. He has some categories here of scores in the contest. Of course, he always comes in first, but I love the score of TG9AJR. He was a single op, still looking and hungry, and his total score was $25.95 plus tax and a 20% gratuity. So you can make up your own score and enter it into the Poisoned of Euro contest. And that brings us to the end of our presentation on microwave microbiology and nano nonsense, a collection of April foolishness and even some truth from the RATPAC group. And this was not just done by me, this was done by a multitude of members who wish to remain anonymous for their own safety and sanity. But the whole presentation is available at tiny.cc/rp-full. And if for some reason you need a PDF version of this, you can click on this link to get one when you bring up this document. So what we'll do now is I will stop the slideshow and we will take questions and snide comments from the audience.
Oh, audience.
Make sure you remember to unmute.
There's got to be questions.
You can put your questions in the chat, and Barry will be happy to handle them. We'll dump that on Barry, and
or raise your hand, and we'll take care of it that
yes.
way. Dan, did you want to say something?
If you have a small d in your name of Dan, you're supposed to speak at this time.
I was just going to go look up the actual title of the Peace Officers Standard Training Psychological Testing Standards, because I'm sure there's something in there that's perfectly applicable to this undertaking. So
the question is, how many people can figure out which of the stuff that we presented are actually things that are real? Some of the stuff is actually real.
It's all real.
Yeah.
All of fake news and misinformation has some kernel of attractant truth.
No, there was truth.
And as a group, we're just unbelievably dangerous in that regard. Let me tell you about the time. So, there you go. I'm glad I didn't miss it.
We all needed a break, and we figured this would be a great break from what we've been doing. Well, some of the stuff we've been doing is very serious and very real. So we needed a little bit of a psychological break to clear our brains. And we have a couple of hands up, Dan.
Well, let me before we do that, Dan, a couple of things from chat. I want to answer Martin W1EMR. He asked, "Okay, is this an April Fool's joke?" No, it is not an April Fool's joke, Martin. And from Mike N6JGA, he had to bow out for another meeting, but he can't wait to install his seawater antenna in the shack. Oh, by the way, if you install this in your own shack, make sure you have a drain in the floor. From Daniel to everyone, clearly this is an AI-created presentation using a rare type of neural network that takes on average 365 days to accumulate sufficient data for this evening's self-driving presentation. It was semi AI. Who said from Dan? Who said that? Who was it that said amateur radio operators scare EMAs? And great delivery from Steve KX4EF. Jim W2KFZ Victor, I'm sorry, said nice job everyone. Steve KX4EF, April Fool's is great. I can't wait for May Pop. And I can't even, must have been smoking some good stuff from Bill KI4FZT. Anyone want to try a urine antenna? Oh, we did that too. It works just perfectly fine, but you got to make sure that you use a bowline so you don't get feedback. That's the biggest problem using the urine antenna. Also, most people, it's a rather brief communications, so make sure you're ready. It's sort of like a satellite pass. You got to make sure you're planned so that you can do short exchanges. Okay, now we can have people raise hands or open their mics and.
Well, I have a chance that we're going to hear from Tom's granddaughter. So take it away, Tom.
I'm going to let Rachel talk. Go ahead.
How do you keep a straight face?
Anthony, that's for Anthony.
It's just years of practice, and being a QRP operator, you have to be persistent when you're a QRP operator, so like me. So that's why I can do it.
Okay.
And Rachel, by the way, it is Rachel, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, Rachel. The most important thing that I can tell you for your future life and education, and everything, is always keep a straight face, and people will believe you no matter what you say.
Tell me your call. Tell me your call.
Oh, I'm KD2UGI.
Oh, very good.
That's a good call sign.
Yes.
Underground investigator.
Okay,
Thank you, Rachel. Go get some friends to get call signs.
Okay, who's up next?
I heard today that the FCC had announced that they're going to use the $35 fee that they're collecting for new licensees to improve the ionosphere. And
I saw that also, and I thought a good way would be just converted into little tiny gold pellets and fired up into the air.
Yeah, that was one of their ideas, and it's not worse than a lot of governmental programs already.
That potato launcher could do it.
Yeah, maybe. They expect results by maybe 2025.
And we did not have time to get the breaking news in, but there was an announcement this morning. The Minnesota section is going to be divided into 3 sections. There'll be northern Minnesota, middle Minnesota, and southern Minnesota to go along with the shenanigans that the Ontario group did a few years back. This is falling on the heels of a few years ago when the Ohio section, most of you don't realize this, but the Ohio section was proposed to be split into 2, with a line cutting across Ohio just north of Columbus. The upper section would be combined with the Michigan section, which would be then renamed the Erie section. The lower section of Ohio would be combined with Kentucky and turned into the Old Dominion Commonwealth section, I think is what they were calling it, or something along those lines. And that actually went out to the section manager of Ohio, and he was not involved in the planning of that. That's the email he received 2 years ago on April 1st in the morning. Okay, so other people out there that would like to jump into the nonsense.
Raise your hand or type it in chat. I can't believe everybody's bashful. Not in the Sandwich world.
At first, I thought that the ARRL Executive Committee agenda that was distributed was an April Fool's joke.
Maybe it was. Maybe it was.
Actually, the Air Force did propose a few years ago to seed the ionosphere with, I forget what they were going to seed it with, to improve propagation in places where they needed to communicate. So that's something that they've actually been thinking about.
Yeah, it's earth chaff, earth bounce.
Yeah.
But you want to be careful about seeding the atmosphere because you just started a whole nother wave of conspiracy theorists.
Yep. Yep.
We're absolutely sure about that.
Oh, and my wife said she didn't need to listen to this tonight because she would tune in her vaccine-generated 5G antenna and be able to get it from the other room without any trouble.
I had the opportunity to closely inspect an afternoon's worth of Pfizer vaccines. Could not find the microchips in there. They've done a wonderful job.
They should have talked to Dennis. He would have provided him with the perfect maybe gates. Okay, guys, come on.
Why not?
We'll pick on you individually if you don't ask questions.
Okay, Oscar, you're coming up.
It's time for a celebration because the FCC said we could keep 3.3 through 3.45 gigahertz. And rumor has it there's good reason for that. And I can't go into that or the spooks that told me would be angry at me.
Maybe they don't want it.
No, they do want it. That's why it's going to be protected and thus secondary. So that's something to celebrate.
Okay. Well, Rachel, do you got anything to add?
Okay, you're unmuted. Do you have anything?
No.
Just so no.
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 No, don't worry, Rachel. Your generation will do a lot better than we are.
And again, here's the link for the presentation, tiny.cc/rp-full.
And please share this with your clubs and stuff. I think a lot of people will get a good laugh out of it.
The idea of introducing humor to contests, that's got legs.
Yes.
It does.
Jim, is that salt water?
The funny thing with the saltwater antennas, the Navy actually uses saltwater antennas.
All iodized. I just filled it up.
Okay.
Try it out now.
Okay.
The mRNA technology went a little off base too quickly. The CRISPR stuff, though, was pretty interesting. You know, that has legs too. I'll just leave it there. Apparently, the measles vaccine was the first mRNA foray into that kind of vaccine, and golly, it's so old. They don't. Is anybody getting measles vaccines these days?
I think it's combined with measles, mumps, and rubella, MMR.
Right, I got all them separately and had a titer for them before, a few years ago. Well, so RATPAC hasn't been wasting our time or their own time.
But they've been doing a lot of time on this. We have our own private group IO, as you can imagine, and that thing has been almost as busy as the SEC Aries Groups IO. They've been really working on this. There's been several people involved with this presentation.
Okay, so you should see the stuff we rejected.
Where's that archive?
No, you don't want to see that some of that stuff.
We limited the medical one to only one set of slides. I had plenty of others. I had a whole carousel of slides I could use on medical parasites, but we limited that to one slide.
They used my face as a judge as to how good or bad they were. My face went green when they showed the slide. They rejected it. Sure, looks like you got something to say. You're moving your lips. There you go. Come on.
Oh, yeah. Well, that was pretty funny. I got a pretty good a kick out of that. So I was all set for a really heavy panel presentation, but it was it was lightened things up a bit.
So were we. We had full attention to have a full panel presentation. And as it turns out, April Fool's is a lot of things are happening, and so some viewers could not make it because all of a sudden they discovered, oh shoot, I committed my time for this or that.
You're making a good point, Dan. How about a real RATPAC planning group presentation?
Well, we could probably do that.
That's kind of the way it started, except it didn't have a name.
Yeah, we could do that. I don't see I think that'd be fun. The group is actually a lot of fun. We have a ball. It's supposed to last an hour. Sometimes Oscar and Barry and those from the far corners of the earth up for us have to leave because it's so late. We're just having too much fun. Okay, anybody else?
Well, just a comment that it seems like as we're starting to see the end of the pandemic has been good for increasing interest in amateur radio and ARES.
The pandemic's had a lot of bad. Can't take that away from it, but it's had a lot of good. One thing that's taken us out of what I keep calling the 9 dots, but it's taken us out of our little bubble and caused us to think outside of our environment and make things work. And this is one great example. There's a lot of people using Zoom and other type of online stuff for teaching classes, for giving tests. It just goes on and on and on. And this is just one part of it. There's other things that the COVID-19 brought out in the public, and some of that won't go away after we get all immune and back to our so-called normal lives. A lot of this stuff will keep going on and growing.
Just a short advertisement. I put in the chat a link for my slide presentations. Tonight, I think I passed the 60 mark tonight. So COVID has been very good to me as far as presentations. So if your local club needs a presentation, take a look at the link I passed out. There's a bunch of different possibilities, and I'd be happy to do a presentation for your club online.
And will you also put the link in there for this presentation that you have?
Yes.
One of the problems is the tiny links that Anthony uses for some of the email systems rejects the whole email when they put in there, and that's causing problems.
Yes.
Is this presentation going to be listed in the
you betcha.
In the standard presentations?
Yep.
Okay, good.
So there's the link is in the chat for it, and the link for, let me make sure I put the right links in. Yep, that's the right one. And the link for my list of presentations is there. And of course, I will also put the full RATPAC list here, although you guys already always have that handy, because that's probably the one you've all memorized.
I think next year we'll do a little bit different. This is up to the board. We'll have to discuss it Tuesday. But I think just besides just being a RATPAC, we'll have an open thing to get this stuff going. Get these guys that have a good sense of humor and imagination. And so like tonight, we could get all these guys putting in input, and then we can build it up from that and present it to who we want to present it to. That'd be a lot of fun next year.
Yeah, I got to get Oscar to tell me how he can sleep and smile like that at the same time.
Practice.
Now that way he can look like he's there and he's not. There he is. You're muted.
I know. I'm here just quiet, listening and laughing and ready to hit the sack and go to sleep.
You're going to have to move farther to the west. And keep your home there in Puerto Rico as your.
If I try to do that, I will create large earthquakes.
Okay. No, you can stay there then.
Geomorphology rules and doesn't need our help, Oscar.
That's correct.
Well, this has been fun. This was not my idea, folks. I just said, okay, go for it. And they started working on it. And there's a number of people put their efforts in this thing. I ought to put a list of all those people and then follow up. But at any rate, there's a lot of work with this. And yes, there were some slides rejected, not because of my green face, but just because they were kind of maybe not show that one. So at any rate, it's been a lot of fun. Rachel, I got to pick on you for a second one more time. You're the youngest one here. What do you think of it? Go ahead.
It was hilarious.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a question for Anthony.
Yes.
Is anything in there not rooted in some kernel of factual information?
Probably the one that's on the shakiest ground, but I think that can be disproved, is the spontaneous generation one. But if you go look at my basement, I guess there's solid proof for that one too.
Or my garage.
Yeah, well, you know, the spontaneous generation one only is valid in the absence of Catus domesticus.
Okay, Dan, you've already volunteered to be at our next presentation. We're going to put jokes on. All right. Does anybody have anything more they want to add, subtract, multiply?
Thank you all for coming. I had a great time, and I hope we all did. It was a good alternative.
Excellent. Excellent job, everybody.
It's a nice break, and there's a happy pup enjoying it.
Yes, there is.
Nice break.
We'll be getting back to our normal routine of trying to have Aries-related presentations on Thursdays and other types of general type ham radio presentations on Wednesdays. We welcome, I got several suggestions today, and I welcome anybody to send them to us, please. Yes, Dan.
Always sniffing for intel. Has anybody heard anything out of Paul Gilbert since we last spoke of him? Or the committee? Or the committee that's going to be a committee?
No.
Okay.
His name shows up, and he's been in a couple of online virtual webinars, as we know, or conventions, but no, not really.
All right. Well, the absence of information is meaningful itself.
It is, and I keep hoping things are going to start turning. I'm giving them to myself personally. This is just me, throw darts at me you want, but I'm giving them to June. That's what David, the CEO, said, give me to June. I'll give them to June before I start getting too disappointed. But hopefully they got a lot of things on the plate. Hopefully we're going to see all that start coming out soon, and keep your faith up, cross your fingers.
Well, I think David's earning some creds, but I'd like to hear that Paul Gilbert is too. That's my nice way of talking. Wouldn't it be nice if?
You know, that's the best way we could go back to the Aries thing by your conversation there, Dan. And next week we'll be getting back to it. Got a lot of good stuff planned. We're starting to fill up in June, so send your I think got one more opening in May. So, but send your suggestions in. We shift things around as the stuff becomes available that's more pertinent to another one. We can sometimes shift around so they're concurrent. So send your thoughts. Ask your clubs when you meet on the air or Zoom aware if they got some ideas what they would like to have. A lot of these clubs have not had presentations for a while. What would they like to have? Find out. All right, I'm boring you to death. Let everybody go, 73s. And Jim, you behave yourself with that bottle of salt water.
73 soil.
We came right from the ocean.
Nice to meet you, Rachel.
Everybody stay frosty and stay safe.
Straight from the Atlantic.